Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to Stew in the Nunn, an online radio show and podcast focused on national security, policy, politics, and selfless service. We're here to give you an honest opinion, a different perspective, and hopefully a few laughs. We do this by not only interviewing guests, but also sharing our own perspectives and asking you, the listener, to interact with us on the show chat room, via our Facebook page, and on Twitter. Welcome everyone to another episode of Stew and the Nunn. You got Stew here in the northern studio, and it is a brisk 29 degrees, up from 16 this morning. And my buddy Nunn right there, Toby, in the southern studio. How you doing, Toby? What's up, man?
I am good. And I'm better because the southern studio has been slightly temperamental in terms of weather lately. We've enjoyed 7 days of fall in a row, and it's been quite frustrating.
What's 7 days of fall in Tejas, in ATX?
Questionable motorcycle riding weather.
Oh. Unlike the time you went last year when you knew you should have been riding the second you got on the road.
What saved me this year is on my annual New Year's Day little tune up with the Ducati. This year the Winter Classic was playing, so I had to enjoy the Dallas Stars on television. I took it outside, I rode around the block, to keep it ceremonial. But I could have ridden a lot more, but it was more important to watch the Dallas Stars beat the Nashville Predators in the very first outdoor hockey game, stadium game in the state of Tejas, the Republic.
That's pretty good. And it stays kind of warm down there. We do those outdoor games up here, but they're not too common down there. And
no.
Hey, we have a great show tonight. We have a great guest coming on. We have another special guest, Toby. You didn't even know he joined us last week. He's gonna be with us every week. I'm very proud. I have my own buddy Jesus that. And
look at you.
And I got that for my son for Christmas, so I'm very happy. I want to introduce Buddy Jesus is watching over me. So I got Jason Amarine behind me, so I can talk to Jason and his little figure. I got Buddy Jesus right here above me, and I can look at him every day and know he's got us covered. So
you really made it when you have your own action figurine.
Yes.
But no, you're right. Figurine Amarine. That's right. I just did that. What we have lined up for us tonight is a really cool guest, also located in the great Republic of Texas, only a few miles south of me. I'm in Georgetown. He's in Austin. We have Jeff Gonzales joining us tonight, and yep. Jeff is a fine American, a great patriot. We have a ton of mutual friends in common. And, we're excited to have him on the show. We've had to do some rescheduling and shuffling due to different things. But Jeff is, he's about to bring his battle buddy on the air with us.
I'm watching. I'm like, what is he doing? And I'm like,
and he's doing curls. He's, not many people like get a party pump before they come on the show, but Jeff's getting a party pump on right now, sitting there doing curls with looks like a Belgian Malinois. So like that's what I like. Let's bring him in.
There he is. He's on. Hey Jeff, welcome to Stu and the Nunn.
All right. So,
Jeff, hang on.
Who's your swim partner? Who's your swim partner?
Come here. This is Brizo. Brizo, come up. Good girl. This is Brizo. She is a 8-month-old Belgian Malinois. She's just getting a little bit of tug time in, so that hopefully she's a little cooperative while we're on the air. So she's no stranger to podcasts, but I know that if I wear her out a little bit before the podcast, she'll be very cooperative.
Yeah, no,
so much of my time.
I feel you. I got a new hunting dog for Christmas, and it's like having a baby in the house, and it's like where you skip the baby phase and you go right to like the terrible toddler phase. I'm in like the 9-week terrible toddler phase with a Brittany Spaniel right now, and she's like wearing my booty out. But
she's a good dog.
Belgian Malinois, a little fur missile, and
she's hunting really hard to try to find her tug toy. She may find it. I tried to put it out of reach, but we'll see if that. We'll see. I love her. She's a hoot.
All right. So let's jump into it. You're located here in the Great Austin area, where I'm at, and the unpaid producer Rob's at. Troy, likes to work here quarterly because it's the coolest place on earth, which is a lot better than Buffalo, New York. You work at the range, which is one of my favorite shooting places. A lot of our mutual friends shoot there. In fact, you've actually taught one of my business partners how to shoot, because I was like, I'm absolutely not teaching this cat how to shoot. But tell us about how you ended up here. Tell us a little bit about your military background and
Sure.
And then how you settled in the area.
Well, I was born and raised here. So once I left for the Navy, about almost 20 years to the day, I returned back home. So that was kind of easy. I'm born and raised in the hill country, so it's kind of natural for me to be here. I love this part of the country. I love this part of the state, so it's easy for me. I don't really have any problems. I was laughing because, we're definitely in spring weather right now. I was laughing because it was like 70 degrees today while we were out and about, but we'll pay for it come the summertime. My military background, as many people know, comes from Naval Special Warfare. Spent the better half of my adult life there on the East Coast and the West Coast as an operator and then as an instructor. The time I spent there was what I consider my formative years, the forging process that I underwent to pretty much put me in the right direction. I was so very lucky to have the opportunities that I had. They were few and far between back in the day, but I managed to gobble up a whole bunch of them. I had great mentors that really kind of kept me in line, but also urged me to strike forward, and maybe probably too much because I definitely got in plenty of trouble as a result of that. But it was always with the team's best interest in mind, how we can do things better, how we should be doing things differently, blah, 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 blah. I left the Navy and pretty much started doing the same work for, other agencies and organizations. And I did that as I started up Trident Concepts. And Trident Concepts was originally, I never intended it to be a full-time job. I was so busy traveling overseas and doing God's work that it was just something to kind of keep me busy while I was home. And it happened again, timing and opportunity. The GWAT was in full bloom, and there was a strong desire to have the training that we were provided at a national level. So we were nonstop. I mean, there were years. I can remember the years where I was traveling probably about 270 to almost 300 days out of the year. And they weren't easy trips because, if you're gone for 6 months, that's an easy trip. because once you get settled in your new routine, things just kind of become easy. But these were like 5 to 7 day long trips. So just when you get your momentum going, all of a sudden you got to shift direction and return back to base. It was great doing that. And ultimately what happened was I had to make a decision as to what direction I wanted to go, because working overseas became very difficult to manage both the family as well as the business. And then I started to actually see myself losing money on the Tricon side because I couldn't spend as much time on the podium as I was, overseas. Eventually, I decided that for long-term sustainability, I was going to focus on the Tricon side. And that was about 07, I think, maybe somewhere. Oh, no, I think maybe closer to 08. I'd have to really look. But I always think it's somewhere between 07 to 09 was when I really decided, okay, that's it. I'm focusing strictly on Tricon. And really never looked back. That for long-term sustainability, I was going to focus on the... Is that me talking?
Yeah, my bad. We had a little audio AV feedback there.
Okay. I thought somebody else was
we're dubbing you over. I was like, it just turned into a really bad kung fu movie really fast.
It did.
I train firearms.
Yes. So
kind of trippy. We get that work.
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
So I once I kind of focused all my efforts on Tricon, it was really, that's where I felt like things really started to turn hard, meaning that we were really branching out in the areas. We were really taking advantage of our expertise. We were bringing that to a large audience. We were doing things differently than anybody else at the time. We were really breaking new ground, and I was thrilled to be a part of that. It was a great time in our history, if you will, of the, like the training industry's history to be doing that. About 3 years ago, this March, we'll celebrate 3 years there at the range at Austin. And probably about 4 years prior to that, or a year prior to that, I got a phone call from a good friend of mine at Action Target, and I've done a lot of work with them. And he calls me up as he's on his way to the airport, tells me basically, hey, listen, I couldn't mention any of this until the ink dried, but I'm literally on my way to the airport, and I just signed a deal with an indoor facility here in Austin I think you'd like to be a part of. And so he gave me the contact info. I reached out to these guys on cold call, like the guy called the guy out of the blue. Didn't know who I was, wasn't surprised by that because he wasn't from the industry. And so he asked me, I just said, hey, listen, here's my website. Why don't you go check it out? And then I get a text message back saying, hey, can you send us a resume? Send him a resume. Text message back, can you meet us? I'm like, sure. I met up with the guys, and what I started working on was more of a consulting basis, just trying to get them in the right direction. And it just took on a life of its own because there's so much potential. And ultimately, it just became a full-time job. They offered me a full-time job. It was nice because it put me kind of more stationary as the boys that I have were kind of moving through high school. And I still travel for Tricon, but it's nice to have a home base where I can really focus a lot of my efforts. And so far, again, 3 years this March. So, we're kind of getting our feet under us a lot better this year. This year's already started off really well for us.
Do your high school boys play sports here in Texas?
They did, and it kind of got a little academic started to get
challenging.
Well, yeah, for us it was. So both my boys played lacrosse, and
awesome.
Yeah, lacrosse is an up and coming sport here. I wish it was around when I was in school. Hush. But I played water polo when I was in high school, so I had a great opportunity to get into a very good sport. But God, I love the sport of lacrosse. It's just so awesome. Hey, quit it. So they were great players. Both my boys were amazing athletes. They kind of got that from both. My ex-wife was an athlete as well, so they have good athletic genes, and they really liked it. I think it was probably around the senior year for my oldest. Oh, you little stinker! No, it's like the oldest took off in senior year. He decided that It was at this level. We're in Lake Travis, so Lake Travis is, any of their programs is like at a college level. They're pretty much playing for keeps there at the high school level, and it's like really challenging to keep everybody to keep it fun in a sense. So my son played it because he liked it and it was fun, and then it got serious because he was such a good player. So his senior year, he decided to take off, and it was an interesting time period because right about that time, my younger son was like, oh, well, if my older son isn't going to play, I guess I'm not going to play. So it kind of created this cascading event. Did we lose him?
Yeah, we did. Toby's internet dropped. He was telling me, so I just I switched the video but so just you and I right now. He's gonna let me know when he can come back on. I don't know why what's going on there, but yeah. So obviously, Jeff, you have a lot of experience. I mean, you mentioned they saw your resume, they saw your site, they picked you right up. We've seen this, in recent times. Obviously, a lot of things going on in our world from people just becoming more aware, wanting to become more vigilant and protect themselves, to as laws change and law enforcement isn't able to provide coverage or as quickly or the way they should. This is saying something from someone from New York who has all kind of issues up here right now with law enforcement laws. To just of course shootings that have happened here and there that get a lot of press and publicity. I've been to the range. I've shot there before. It is an awesome facility. I've been to some others up in near Fort Worth and out in Salt Lake. There's definitely the ranges that like the range and others that have bars in them and all that stuff are they are kind of cutting edge, almost like country clubs. I mean, they're what are you seeing and do you see? I guess let me ask you this. There's the ranges that are outside that are kind of, you're putting up your E-types and you're putting up, Iron Maidens and shooting steels, and there's ranges like the range. Do you see a different caliber of shooter, a different seriousness of shooter that go from one to another?
That's a good question. That's a harder question to answer. I would say this. We attract a diverse field of skills as far as the different types of shooters that we see. We have such a diverse, and the reason for that is we have such a diverse program. We have a lot of depth in our program. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, I got it back now. Here we go.
Good. So we have such depth in our program that we see so many different talented shooters come through. We really do a good job of trying to keep everybody entertained and engaged. So that's one thing I'm really proud of. The things that I think set us apart really are that we do offer, like, as far as an indoor range is concerned, we do a lot of things that are kind of like not normal. When we're running our training classes are built around the Tricon model. So, they're pretty in-depth and intense. We offer a lot of different programs that kind of support the educational side of the house that are more on the entertainment. So we do everything from our Metal Mania matches to our straight up, gunfighter matches. And we have what we call a gunfighter club, which is a monthly training subscription. So these guys are like our serious trainers. They're our serious students that train every month. They're putting in like 16 hours or more every month. And I mean, the product speaks for itself in that sense. These guys have really just made so much advancements in such a short time. Like to take it, the way that I've seen it from the Tricon side, I'll travel to all these various locations, and some of them I go to on a regular basis. Like I hit up some of the usual suspects, and when I go to those locations, I sometimes see the same students from one year to the next, which is great. I love keeping up with them and watching their progressions. Right. But what I'm getting is a yearly snapshot. So granted, some of them have taken other training classes between the last time I saw them to the next time I see them, but I don't get a chance to really develop a strong sense of their actual development. So with my gunfighter club members, I see them every month, and they're training with my staff every month doing stuff. And so just being able to track that progression and that development in such real-time settings is awesome. It's just really cool. It really is.
Do you have students that are people that sign up And they're psychological. Some people they shouldn't. They have the wrong mindset. Do you have any that you go like, you know what? Maybe you shouldn't be doing this. Someone may show up and think they're a Rambo or want to be the next OK Corral kind of thing. Or have you not had to deal with that?
No, we don't see that. I mean, I see because our programs are so diverse. And here's the other thing: like on the Tricon side, we're used to dealing with a certain clientele, like a certain type of student, which I would consider to be like on the special operations side of the house. Those were for that time period during the GWAT, that was it. That's all we were working with. And then we had open enrollment classes where we would commingle with these guys and regular private citizens. So now we see a lot of first-time gun owners, new shooters, folks that actually are taking training that don't actually even own a gun because they are just on the fence about this entire subject. So those are the folks that we see more. Are you going to see those types of folks that might take it a little bit too seriously? Maybe, but I don't think we see them. At least I don't see them regularly enough for it to pop up on my radar and say, "Oh crap, we should probably address that," or we should think about what to do.
Well, it's good that if you're seeing people that come in and don't act like they know everything, that are saying, hey, I need basic classes, advanced classes, CCW class, the right way, maybe some law stuff, if you're getting those kind of things, that's encouraging that people are thinking to that degree that it's not just, hey, I need to teach me how to go pew pew down range, but there's all the other dynamics go along with it, right? When is the right time to break leather or not break leather based on whatever state they're in, that kind of stuff.
Well, that's a good point. And, we have taken an approach. So the hard part is, you have to till the land. You have to put the work in to till the land to produce the products that you want, the crops, if you will. And it's no different here. And because we're a fixed location, I have the ability to really sit out there and work hard at bringing a clientele in that can appreciate that type of learning model. Now, we do get a fair amount, and this is across the board, whether it's classes I'm doing there at TRA or classes that I'm doing with Tricon. We get a fair amount of people that have a higher sense of their skill sets. They have probably a little, they see themselves at a different level than they actually are. And so that's a norm. I think that's normal because it's hard to kind of equate yourself to other people. You don't really, unless you're doing it on a regular basis, it's kind of hard to know, I'm advanced, I'm intermediate, I'm beginner. That is hard. So sometimes we do see people that are like, ooh, this was not what I was expecting. I thought I would do a little bit better. I didn't see myself failing, things like that. But it's more nowadays, what I see from the students is more of a appreciation for that type of feedback. Like, okay, because there was a time, I'm serious, there was a time when people would actually flat out refuse to come to our training classes because the possibility existed that they could fail. And they did not want that. They did not like that. Today,
pride is a terrible sin, and humility is an awesome characteristic that's often taken for granted.
It's true. I've seen a shift to a certain extent, and I really try to encourage people to say to themselves that failure is a gift. And what I learned from failure is where my weaknesses are. I draw a lot of parallels to a lot of different fields because we all come from different backgrounds. We have different life experiences. And a great field for many people, or at least a good majority of people, is the CrossFit community. And the CrossFit community, you are constantly trying to shore up your weaknesses. Like, you know what? I really suck at double unders. I need to put more time in on them. And people in the CrossFit community don't look at that as like, oh my God, I suck. They look at it like, I need to get better at this particular skill. So that's a little different on the firearm side of the house. Most people I don't want to admit that I suck. I don't want to know that I suck. I want to kind of avoid that subject altogether. I don't want to tackle it because I don't want to be reminded that I'm not good at it. So we're trying to encourage that CrossFit mindset, which is, okay, all right, I need work on this because I want to be well-rounded. I want to be able to attack a workout and know where I'm strong and can really do well, and know where I'm weak and need to be a little bit more aggressive about changing that.
Jeff, I'm back. Yeah, sorry about that. Apparently, the internet in Georgetown all went down at one point in time. Hey, so I know I missed a little bit, and I've been trying to get caught up in comments and stuff while you were going. So you and Tim, when I say Tim, I mean Tim Kennedy. I mean, you're actually on his most current tweet, doing a different stance flow at the range in Austin.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there working them on the clock. But you guys, the reason I want to talk about this is because the two of you just talked about church shootings. And, this is a training question because, this is one of the most common places in Texas, right? So, we've had El Paso with Walmart. We've had, these other scenarios throughout the nation. But there seems to be a trend. If it's not in a nightclub, it's in a church, be it South Carolina or Texas twice. And these are everyday sober occurrences. And when I say sober, I mean like just everyday people doing everyday things or Sunday things. And this is like a really interesting scenario, right? Because this is the epitome of why people carry. The range at Austin, Tricon, whatever, these are organizations, these are training platforms that you utilize for this moment, correct?
Yeah, what we're training for is the unknowable. It's right. We don't know what to expect. We don't know where it's going to happen. We don't know when it's going to happen. One of the things that we talk about with your Second Amendment right, is that, you have to exercise that on a regular basis. I'm not just talking about from a constitutional point of view, but from a safety point of view. I mean, if you want to protect your family, protect yourself, there is no way for you to predict. There is maybe a way that you can say, okay, if I go to this place at a certain time, I could probably expect bad things to happen. Like you go to a protest. Okay, yeah, maybe bad things are going to happen at a protest. Probably shouldn't avoid it. Probably shouldn't.
You're looking for it when you go there. Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly my point. So if you're smart, you kind of avoid these types of places that can lead to that type of outcome, a negative outcome. And I'm not saying not to get involved in protests, but I'm just saying that if you do get involved in protests, which and it's your duty to some extent to be engaging with the other side. But what I mean by engaging is like in conversation. And so you just have to keep that in mind, that you're never going to know when the bad things are going to happen. So since you can't predict them with any real sense of reliability, you're tasked to be ever vigilant. And part of that vigilance is preparation with your equipment, and again, we live in the great state of Texas, which is a very LTC friendly state. One of the most popular classes that we do at the range is our LTC program. We have a very diverse LTC program outside of just what the state requires. And so it is constantly, we have full houses in those classes all the time. And one of the things that I tell people is that, number one, this LTC that you have received from the state, or once you receive it from the state, does not elevate you in your skill level. Just because you got it doesn't mean that you're all of a sudden. Yeah. It's a hard thing, because a lot of times people just want the sense of, okay, I now have this license, I'm good. And I try to get across to people that it's not like you are not good, but there's so much more that you have to take on. Right. So again, an example here, you go to church. If you're church going and you attend church services on a regular basis, you run we know that violence is typically perpetrated at certain types of, religion has been an incredibly violent episode in our human history, whether it's our religion or somebody else's religion, you can generally expect there to be some sort of violence directed at it. And we're seeing that, like you said, we've seen it a couple times here in our state. So what I try to get across to people is preparation for something like that is challenging. You know, you're not looking at like a ATM robbery, you know, where you go to the ATM and you get mugged and you lose your wallet and you lose your cash and stuff like that, or you fight back. This is a much more complicated scenario, and I don't necessarily consider it an active shooter per se. An active, you know, that term has become very widely used, and I think sometimes misused. What I see in these types of situations is I see people that are armed and ready to defend themselves more regularly. Like, we're seeing a lot more people that are actually taking up arms and practicing and training for these. So as you can imagine, we got a lot of emails and phone calls and questions. Yeah. And
no, I can't imagine.
Yeah. And so what I try to tell people is like, so a big thing that we see right now, and I'm not necessarily poking fun at it, and I'm not trying to belittle people, but so many people are like windshield wipers. On one day they're over here, on the next day they're over here. And what I mean by that is with training theories or skill development, like one day it's like everybody needs to be a killer commando at 5 yards and in, because that's it. You know, you're going to get mugged at close range, and you need to be able to, you know, get to your blaster quickly and deliver effective fire very fast. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. Yeah. And then all of a sudden the next day it's like, oh shit, well, we need to be able to dial in and be able to take a precise shot at distance, because that's going to be, you know, a new and up and coming threat. And I'm like, guys, the bottom line is that you don't know. You don't know what kind of threat you're going to be faced with. You have to be so well-rounded that you can manage it all. And we used to have a saying in the teams that you let the situation dictate, right? So, but to get to that level, we had trained for so many different scenarios and contingencies that if we found ourselves in a situation where, boom, things went sideways on us, well, we had already rehearsed this contingency to manage it. And we had the skill sets that allowed us to bridge whatever gaps might be present between those skills, that it was like not that big a deal. So that's kind of like that's my recommendation for folks, is not to, people want to be a specialist. They want to specialize in this. I want to specialize in being a super fast shooter at close range. I want to specialize at being super accurate at distance. And I'm like, you can't specialize. You have to be a generalist. You have to have these skills developed across a wide range of modals so that you can let the situation dictate and you just respond.
Do you find that, because I work a lot with training, doing a lot of stuff with shooting. I also am on a large church security team, actually, where I'm at, and I work with a lot of folks here. And, you know, obviously from the military side, right, we talk about muscle memory. We talk about the number of times that you have to, 10,000 times repeating an action or whatever it is to make it train muscle memory. Some of the things I found working with folks that, you know, are lucky enough to get a permit in the state of New York is kind of, you mentioned earlier, once they get it, they think that somehow, like, they got a concealed carry. To get one in New York is pretty extraordinary anyways, but once you get it, they think, okay, that's it. I got that. I did whatever I needed to. And people, I see, unless they really come at this with the right approach, and it seems to be a less than 1%, they do not realize it's such a perishable skill. They also, if they've never been in the situation, do they understand what tunnel vision is? Do they understand how adrenaline affects the body? When you work with people and you're training them for concealed carry or for advanced shooting techniques or whatever, do you get into some of those aspects, the physiological aspects of the body, and how they're going to possibly react, or what they may see or experience if God forbid they ever have to get into a situation?
Yes and no. Like, some of the subjects that you talk about, we address, but not necessarily publicly. Like for instance, like developing that muscle memory. We don't talk necessarily about it. Our programs are very intense to the point where you are going to rack up a lot of repetitions, and in that process, we are evaluating those skill sets so that we are developing those skills technically correct, and then we develop them at a level that allows the shooter to control the aspects of movement so that they are minimal. They're using the minimal amount of movement with the most precision possible. And that creates that muscle memory that you're talking about. Other subjects, we will sometimes a specific skill set has we have a preference over one technique over another, simply because under certain types of conditions, like you mentioned, like the heightened state that you might be in, where everything is happening either at 100 miles an hour or super slow motion, or you can't see anything but this right here, or you can't hear anybody around you talking. So we kind of mention those things, but what we really try to hit on is why we might choose a technique over another. It's like, well, we probably will use this technique because maybe under those types of circumstances, it might be a little bit harder to do these techniques. So anything that we're looking at, whenever we talk about a technique, we try to get away from a speed component. Like, I think most people will judge technique based on speed, like how fast is this going to be faster than technique A versus technique B? Well, which is faster? For us, it's more about which is more reliable under stress. I want something that under those types of stressful conditions that you described, my training is developed to the point where it really doesn't matter. I could be sick, I could be healthy, I could be tired, I could be awake, I could be, not alert, I could be alert, and I'm well developed, I'm well designed to the point where I can react with that high level of reliability.
Gotcha. That makes sense. What'd you have, Toby?
Well, and that's it, right? The having that plan, having that background, like you said something like, and I was sitting there thinking, I had a conversation with someone the other day. I was on a VO hunt, and we were talking about first aid bags, and they were like, "Hey man, like, what do you think of this first aid bag?" And they showed me the first aid bag, and I was like, "Yeah, that's really cool. Do you know how to use any of this?" Like it had like a tourniquet and nasal pharyngeal. It had all kinds of like Israeli bandage. I mean, it was a great kit. It was a solid IFAC, right? And I was like, yeah, man, you know how to use any of this? Like, have you ever practiced or trained with any of this? Because, like, that's far more important than having it. I hate to bring up one of the worst television actors of all time, but one of the greatest characters ever created, Richard Dean Anderson's portrayal of MacGyver. He could save a lot. He could save a lot of the world's problems with what he had in his pockets, but that's because he knew what he had in his pockets and how he could do something with it.
Yeah.
But, no, like there you go. I brought in MacGyver, so like it's the show is complete. We can wrap.
Nice.
But no, Jeff, like I think it's really important. One of my business partners. We're former business partners. A couple years ago, came to me and he was like, he's an older gentleman. He's a great guy. We put a little bit of pressure on him, just because he's a wealthy guy and he carries around a lot of, cash and does different things.
Yeah.
Like, hey, like you're a soft target. We need to get you, prepared. We need to get you defended. And he's a sweetheart of a guy. And, he didn't have a gun, so him and I went down to a gun store and, we looked at a couple different things. I made some recommendations. And then I was like, but here's the deal. Like, you need to go train. Going and buying this thing is one thing. Getting a class is another. What you need to do is you need to go learn. And he came and he took multiple classes with you. He talked a lot about it. He talked about, like the confidence, that he got, of course, we're talking about a wealthier guy. So going to like the range at Austin, is very nice. It's that Gun-Tree Club kind of feel, people are, they're treated well there. There were, Troy takes us, is like, his work buddies there, for an afternoon of team building,
Nice.
I don't remember that. I don't remember that invitation, but I'm just saying I'm not offended, slightly bitter, but the, no, and it's important that you have that, like you said, you take a class, it doesn't make you an expert. You buy a first aid kit because you found something on Amazon that had a 5-star rating, doesn't make you safer in your vehicle. It doesn't make you safer in your home or in your car or in your life walking down the street, because for 10 hours of your life you dedicated half dedicated your attention to a class. And like, really appreciate what you're doing. Love the range, the concept of the range. I remember, getting a briefing of it, and it was kind of a briefing. We were out at the Firearms Fest at Best of the West a couple years back, and they were like, "Hey, we're building this thing," and one of my favorite Texas veterans, a guy by the name of John Wayne Taylor, was like, "Hey, you got to like deal with you got to check out this place, this idea." And I was like, "There's no way that they're putting an indoor shooting range off of I-35 in Austin, Texas." Like, I was like, "Weed's not legal yet, so like whatever you're doing, that's not." But it's awesome. I love it. I love, how it's being responded to, especially in the fact, to the fact that it's happening in Central Texas, in Austin, in this bastion of like weirdness. And so like that's a direct reflection on guys like you that born, raised, returned, and bringing great things to this community. So one, I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for your time. If you want to see Jeff Gonzales in action, you can see him on at Tim Kennedy MMA on Twitter right now. He's the current tweet that
I haven't even seen that.
has Jeff, watchfully adjudicating, standing, squatting, to the sitting, to the prone, back to the sitting, to the squatting, or to the kneeling, to the squatting, to the standing. A great, alternate position flow. And Jeff behind him, like dad's watching, like, what are you doing? You can check him out on Twitter at Jeff L. Gonzales. Thanks for coming on, man. Really appreciate you. Thanks for all that you do. People think that, this idea of, these security consulting companies and this mentality is like this first world issue. It's not. It's an all world issue. It's an all neighborhood issue. It's an all HOA community / church issue.
Oh man, you're freezing up on me.
Yeah. No.
I appreciate you did Harley Frost. Shout out to my man Harley Frost that went and saw you. And obviously, like, TK is, like, good friends, so we appreciate you letting him, shoot all the ammo he gets for free with you, because like, who else gets pallets full of ammo for free? He's like, "Hey, why don't you come shoot with me?" Well, Tim, let me tell you why. Because I got to buy my ammo. That's right.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, hey, well, thanks a lot, Jeff. Thank you for coming on, giving us some of your Thursday night. We really appreciate it, and hope to stay in touch. And,
yeah, for sure. And
next time I'm down there, maybe we all link up. But obviously, Toby's just right up the road from you. But yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for everything you've done for our country, and you continue to do for our country and the service you do.
My pleasure, guys. My pleasure. Right. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, man. Have a good night.
All right, you too.
All right, everybody. So there we go. Let me. How am I doing here?
Your Bush League. Like, you want me to give you instructions on how to do this right here?
I think that's the last. That's the last thing that needs to happen.
I graduated.
That's the last thing. That's it. All right. Hey, I am juggling multiple. I don't even want to get into it. No excuses. No, you're on now. We're good. I had to do the disconnect there, man. We are Bush League. In fact, we're doing this off Skype, which I hope Microsoft keeps supporting that, because if they don't, I don't know what we're going to use. But we're on now. I got your video up. So there we go, everybody. Jeff Gonzales. Check him out at Jeff L. Gonzales on Twitter. Also check him out at Trident Concepts. You can get to him there at tridentconcepts.com. And another great guest by Rob, our unpaid producer, who continues to produce and provide.
No, we got him linked up on our one of our chat rooms. And then on my Facebook, I have a direct link that you can go to click on Trident Concepts, as well as him. So like, yeah, it was super awesome to have him on the show.
Yeah.
I was laughing because he's dealing with a puppy right now, and like that's kind of my life right now is dealing with a puppy.
I didn't know you got a new puppy. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure how long it was going to take you to be ready to make that move again.
Well, I got to tell you a funny story. Absolutely not ready to make that move. And, we were kind of investigating different species, to be quite frank. And true story, like we sat down at Thanksgiving and watched the National Dog Show to kind of see what dogs were out there. Just, and I've been doing a little bit of research. I had a golden doodle and really loved that dog. He was a great dog, and I really wanted another one. But my biggest fear is if I got another golden doodle, I would constantly be comparing that dog to my previous dog. And in all fairness, I didn't think that would be good, because I had such an awesome dog. And, lightning, doesn't, you can't catch it in a bottle twice. And then this came out of nowhere. There was all these weird coincidences and things. And next thing I know, like unprepared, I got a dog. And,
well, if you were watching the show at Thanksgiving, a bulldog won. I'm surprised you didn't get a bulldog because there's nothing.
Well, that's because a bulldog is not a working dog for hunting.
No, they're not.
I need with Veteran Outdoors and everything that I do in the field, I need a working dog, and I got a great sporting / working dog in a Brittany Spaniel. Her name is Cece, named after Christchurch, New Zealand, because all my dogs or animals are named after a cool spot in the Southern Hemisphere. And in terms of bird hunting, that's a cool spot in New Zealand. Unfortunately, Christchurch got a little bit of bad press last year because there was a little shooting there. That didn't influence naming her. The other greatest bird hunting place in the Southern Hemisphere is a place called Rotoloa. And, the family just didn't think that Rotoloa was going to be a good name, a.k.a. Roto.
That name doesn't roll
Hey,
off.
Roto.
Yeah.
Exactly. CC, for Christchurch won out, and CC she is.
That's it.
So,
well, hey, speaking of shootings and speaking of things going on, we got a little bit of time here left. As you know, I got to be on the ice here in a little bit, but man, we were talking with our good buddy Shard the other day on text 2 days ago, and we're talking about some fodder. He always throws us topics to talk about, and I think he said it best when he's like, but there's still 24 hours left before the show, so who knows what topics we could talk about. And man, so Toby, I want to get into something real quick. A couple topics I know we both want to hit. I want to get on this plane going down. And I'm not to tout my own horn, but immediately when it went down, I started saying, yeah, that was not an accident. And then once I heard that within an hour of it going down that Iran said, oh, it was mechanical, I was like, man, even our NTSB won't even make that claim. Like, they could see the engines fall off in air and have it on video, and they're not going to say it's mechanical until they investigate it. And, I threw a funny little photo up and kind of threw a little snarky comment up there on our Facebook page about this. And then sure enough, what do we got? We got the Prime Minister of Canada joining the United States and saying, yeah, this was a shoot down, probably not deliberate. Probably was somebody turned on the radar when they shouldn't have, or they got a little antsy. But now we have footage on New York Times showing the plane getting hit. They have imagery of parts of the missile in amongst the debris, half a plane that's missing, and just doesn't look good. Yet Iran still says there's no way at all that they shot down a plane during the middle of while they were launching missile strikes.
So
your thoughts?
Well, I have a couple, and first and foremost, my thoughts are of condolence, and my thoughts are of condolence to 60+ Canadians, primarily young people. I don't often agree with our man Prime Minister Trudeau. But in this, I absolutely agree. And the nation mourns. The people of Canada mourn for its youth, its bright and shining youth. The majority of Canadians on that flight, and there were 60 plus Canadians on that flight. And the reason I'm not giving an exact number is because there was Iranian students also on that flight that had applied for Canadian naturalization. So I don't want to shortchange them, their nationalities, because they're deserving to be part, as their plan was to be part of Canada. This is a heartbreaking thing, and my first thought is that of condolences, because here were some great young minds, primarily university students and professors, some families, some mothers, with small children, that were trying to make their way back, all with connecting flights to Canada, so that they could escape what they thought was an escalation. And it is. It's heartbreaking. And you were absolutely correct in your assessment. You and I texted privately and shared, this is not a moment of gloating. This is not a moment of, I told you so. And for all of those that follow us on Facebook and have liked our page and see that stuff, because the picture that you're talking about is on Facebook, at the Stu and the Nunn on Facebook or whatever. Yes, like we did give a funny meme to the scenario, because we were trying to inject a little bit of humor into a horrible, tragic scenario, because this was the direct failure of action, and innocent people were lost. Yeah. And the reason I want to bring this up is because, like, America mourns with Canada on this. This is not a "I told you so" moment. This is not a, well, like, such is life, or if you're Quebecois, c'est la vie. This is not that moment. This is a legitimate, whoa, hey, the greatest terrorist of all time, one of the biggest advocates of the Democratic Party, one of the most brilliant minds of our generation, one of the greatest military leaders the United States has ever known, is a guy by the name of General David Petraeus, United States Military Academy graduate of 1974. This guy, single-handedly, wrote all these different doctrines and changed the dynamic and the outcome of, what the American forces did. He and went on to become the director of the CIA. Let me make sure I state that. He wrote an article stating, and a paper stating, that he believes that hitting Soleimani is the greatest accomplishment in American national security, right? So, like, and anyone that follows politics knows that General David Petraeus is not a fan of the current administration.
Right.
And, General Mattis hasn't come out and said this, but I imagine if he was afforded the opportunity and a microphone was put in his face, he would probably complimentary things about Soleimani. I remember the 9th of April 2004, where charter bus loads of Iranian fighters came at us, like in black pajamas and green armbands. The fact that Iran has been in a war with the United States since 1979 is not a surprise to anyone that's ever been in the Middle East, and should not be a surprise to anyone that's engaged in any diplomatic affair involving the United States and the Middle East. With that being said, we had the opportunity to take a guy out. We have a status of forces agreement with the country of Iraq, people that we had direct intelligence, whether you take partisan politics out of it. The guy was there in person meeting with people that were directly involved with our embassy being vandalized, overrun, and besieged just days prior. So I like this whole we need proof thing. Cool. Understand that you're hamming it up for the cameras. Any person with an ounce of common sense and any understanding knows that this guy, I mean, previous administrations, regardless of party, have deemed this person in particular the greatest terrorist on the planet.
And they passed up on taking him. They could have taken him before.
Right. But
But I'm saying, but it's not like he was a.
We don't know the situation that they were in.
Right. But what I'm saying is he's not a new threat, right? He's somebody that we've recognized for a long time, and that
Yes.
we put eyes on.
I'm not judging the decisions that have been made in the past. I'm not the president of the United States. I could never be the president of the United States. You and I both appreciate and understand the pressures that come with that job. Or to be a big commander. I guarantee in your military career, just like in my military career, you were faced with a decision that was hard. And you took pause to make that decision because you knew and understand and comprehended the awesome weight of human life that was this yoke bearing down on his shoulders, driving you into the planet. And that's not gravity. That's just weight. And so we had the opportunity. The current president of the United States made a bold move and made that call. And it was with minimal BDA. It was without collateral damage, and it was targeted, it was surgical, it was downright brilliant, and it was done in a quick fell swoop in a location with status of forces agreement without the legal need to do any of this. We caught a guy literally with his pants down where he wasn't supposed to be, doing something he wasn't supposed to do, and we got him.
Yeah.
And I hope whatever he believes and however he feels he's doing that, and bless his heart, because he is not where he thinks he was going to be. That dude was a scumbag. He was a monster. And,
some of the reports, Toby, were that there was this, I don't know if you saw the one footage, the New York Times carried it. Iraqis actually stood up and went and attacked the Iranian consulate and burned it and wiped out just attacked and vandalized it right afterwards.
Yeah.
Because there has been this big Iraqi uprising from young Iraqi youth against Iran, and some of the reports were he came in the country to help kind of motivate the troops and quell that and put that down, because there's this surge of young Iraqis who are anti-Iran and protesting against them, and it kind of was validated a little bit when you see that they, right after it happened, to celebrate him being taken out, that they went and wiped out, pretty much destroyed the Iranian consulate in Iraq, right? Which says quite a bit, and goes right along with the supposed parliament vote in Iraq calling for the removal of U.S. troops, which was done by nothing but pro-Iranian Shiites. No one else showed up to that vote.
No, so there's two or three things that I quickly want to touch on. There's no doubt, everyone, doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, agrees that this dude, Soleimani, this is the most significant hit in modern American history. Absolutely the most significant hit. And don't take Toby Nunn's word for it. Don't take, this little infantry, kind of quasi, pundit guy's word. Take one of the most brilliant minds that has ever been in American military, General David Petraeus' word for it. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. Go take his word for it. This isn't a partisan issue. We need to stop tossing partisan stones on the lake and hoping that they skip or they sink. This is what it is, and we did it, and this is awesome. This is a moment that we should, revere, and we should, consequences of it. Let's also go to the fact that the country of Iran has not issued American press credentials in quite some time. Now all of a sudden it's like, oh hey, yes, we have these emergency passes for press credentials. Why don't you come in? That's like saying like the Austin City Limits is like, hey, Pearl Jam's playing. We've been sold out for 8 months, perhaps 5 years. We have 5 secret backstage passes. Like, oh, only for you, CNN. And like all of a sudden, like, oh, hey, yeah, I want to go meet Eddie Vedder. And, you got like the brightest, and the up and coming talent that, are trying to make themselves correspondents, like jump on planes. They fly into Tehran, because like that's an easy flight to book. And they get there. And they're like, well, we would like you to cover the funeral of our great general Soleimani. So they go to the funeral, and half the banners are in English. Because, like, hey, I don't always, like, virtue signal. But when I do virtue signal, I make sure that it's in the language of my enemy.
Yeah.
Like...
I do like that.
Canada, and you were like, oh, hey, that's in English. Oh, and that's in French. You're like, oh, well, that's because Canada's a bilingual country. Yeah, last time I checked, the Persians were not freaking bilingual.
No, but I gotta ask, and I'm wondering, what do you think? But I think it's very curious that his hearse was a Chevy Silverado pickup, and I don't know if that was planned or
like a rock,
or is unplanned. What was the meme? Right? It's great to shout death to America. Right, great to shout death to America while your leader is being hauled in the heartbeat of America.
There's so much irony in this whole scenario.
Chevy needs to take that and make that into a commercial. Like, we're so good that our enemies that hate us drive us.
No, like I don't know if that's gonna help sales, but it definitely would be like meme worthy. But here's the thing: is like they put the banners in English. The fine gentleman from the southern portion of Texas, Congressman Will Hurd, former CIA guy. Maybe you've heard of him. He's kind of a smart kid, gentleman. He said it best. It is so heartbreaking to see this regime play the American people the way they have, where we have people like claiming that this guy is a victim, claiming that this regime is a victim. All the things that they stand for, human rights, individual rights, freedoms. No, like this regime does not stand for that. Yet, they're because of their hatred, their blindness, their whatever, they have like all sided with us. And it is heartbreaking to think that people would defend. That's like someone in a prison camp in, say, the 40s, like saying, you're just misunderstanding the people that put us here.
Right.
Like, literally, figuratively. I mean, the monstrosity is so parallel.
There's interviews,
and that's not me like just trying to mince words.
No.
Right?
So there's interviews with Iranians that have immigrated here that have gotten to America. My wife was just telling me about one with this lady, who are like, they lived underneath it. They're like, Iranians are celebrating that he is dead. That what he has done, the female genital mutilations, the murders he's done. Like they're like, why is America acting like this? They're like, this is multiple interviews, and people they're able to, the news outlets that are willing to do it are talking to folks that are saying, if you knew a tenth of what this guy did, you would be celebrating like all of our Iranians are doing. The ones that marched, that then 38 got trampled to death, they got paid, they got set up, or they got forced because of their faith or their tribe to do that. But Iranians are celebrating that he's done because he brutally mutilated and murdered and maimed his own people, right, at the will of whatever their guidance is. So, people, it's not no different than any. It's social justice warriors on a global scale. People over here think they know better because that's the narrative they're supposed to tout. and they're gonna preach to everyone else how they're supposed to act and the way they're supposed to behave, right? And like you said, the Iranians are great at doing managing that narrative by rushing over some CNN and MSNBC people and having all the banners there and doing these nice drone shots overneath this crowd that just looks like it's, you know.
Make sure you like focus in on the verbiage that's in English. No, so like now to, you know, like just to kind of share some bravado but / reality. People here, you know, have been losing their minds talking World War III. We got the selective service site crashing, like all this silliness, all this ridiculousness. We're talking about, we took out a guy. Oh, so they take our ship, they parade our sailors on national television. They call it war. They do all these different things. They attack our boats. They place mines on, you know, passing merchant vessels. You know, the IEDs, the EFP technology that they brought into Iraq, you know, causing dismemberment and death of hundreds of Americans. Like all these different things they do. They're like, you know, like that's not escalation worthy. We fire one hellfire and we change the dynamic of that scenario. They fire 15 ballistic missiles, 0 casualties. They have a funeral for their own guy, substantial casualties. They don't know how to deal with the scenario. They kill a innocent path. Like, we don't even have to fight these cats. These guys are killing themselves.
Right.
You know, like, and then anytime someone says like, oh, we don't want war with Iran. Okay, like, this isn't a hockey chirp. This isn't like you just slashed my guy because we just scored on you. This is me going like, you think I'm that worried about a cat that, you know, fought to a stalemate for 8 years at the cost of hundreds of thousands of lives on both sides with no territorial exchange that we did in 72 hours?
Trust me, they don't want war with us, right? We don't want war with them if they ever get these nukes.
No one wants war.
No.
But like, what I'm saying is like, stop this fear mongering. Right. Stop getting on there and being like, the selective service site crashing is just a perfect demonstration of how ignorant we are about ourselves.
Right.
You know, we talk all this trash about how educated, but like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, to happen that quick and
service site crash because people are like, I hope I don't get drafted to go fight in the war in Iraq. Like, what are we learning in public schools? This should be the greatest testament. This should be the greatest testament to like, let's take a deep look at ourselves.
Well, it's because they're not learning it in school. They're not even seeing that on mainstream media. They're getting that from Snapchat, Instagram, and social media, and it's running rampant, right? And it caught everyone by. I think that happening caught people by surprise because even though there were some pundits on some outlets that were saying, you know, we don't want this to happen, no one was beating a drum saying, oh my God, this is it, it's happening. It went crazy on social media to cause these people all to run there and say, oh, what does a selective service site say? Do I got to get drafted? I mean, you know, that's where it took off, and hopefully it gets some people to wake up and realize, wow, we kind of overreacted, right? I think we kind of got a little silly on that one, or, you know, whatever. But it may or may not, because give it 10 minutes and everyone's going to forget it and it's going to be on to something else. But, you know, they should be more worried about getting drafted as the war continues in Afghanistan than worry about drafted for a war with Iran, right? We're not putting boots on the ground there. We're not even going to hardly do anything there. Because they're not going to go with us. That country is almost broke. They're doing 200,000 barrels of oil a day. They can barely, through sanctions, they're almost an entire broken country. They cannot afford to lose a refinery. They can't afford to lose anything that sustains them monetarily because they are barely able to function due to the sanctions that are just imposed on them. Right? They can. Well, They started this nuclear. They violate the whole nuclear treaty and start making stuff again. They're going to get the whole world against them, because the world came together before and said you can't do this, you can't have these, right? They're just going to do them, pile up the tokens in front of them.
So like everyone keeps going back and referencing this like nuclear deal. There never was a nuclear deal. If you go and like look at the actual like articles of that deal, it I mean, it doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure out like there wasn't much of a deal there.
No, there
There
wasn't.
wasn't, like, and so here's the thing. I'm not bad mouthing the previous administration, and the reason I'm not bad mouthing is because they tried to do something. It's not what I would have done. It was a way. It might not have been the way that I'd have done it, but they tried to do something. And hey, good lesson to learn. Expensive one for the American people, for the taxpayers, and perhaps for the stability and safety of the region. But hey, you tried. And so I'm not going to disrespect anybody that put a little bit of time and effort into it, because like ideologically, they thought that they were going to do it. But let the record reflect, and I know we got to wrap here pretty quick.
Yeah.
Let the record reflect. Anytime you got to bring in Hollywood superstars to sell something, it's probably not that good. If you're bringing in a pop culture star to sell something, you are selling swampland in Florida and you're selling ice cubes to Eskimos. All right? You are not speaking sense. If you need George Clooney to be your sales rep for a deal, then you need to go and listen to Ricky Gervais' Golden Globe monologue just a couple more times, because that person is not educated enough or prepared enough. Whereas he would say they got about as much schooling as Greta Thunberg,
Yeah.
just speak on that. Absolutely. If you don't know what you're talking about, don't talk about it. There were guys, like I said, Congressman Will Hurd, Congressman Ben Crenshaw, some really educated, not just with knowledge of, but acquaintance with, speaking on the floor of the House tonight. As the House, passed a bill to limit, the actions that the president can do against Iran. And I get it. Nobody wants a war, and I appreciate the efforts, of Congress to, try and make sure that, we're not sliding down a slippery slope where someone can make wild and crazy decisions to do something that affects, like divisions and cores of our military. But that's not what happened. That's not what happened at all. I appreciate their debate. I appreciate the fact that, like, we voted on some impeachment that are still not forwarded.
No. Here's another example of Congress
like,
overreaching, right? Congress controls the purse.
Yeah.
They control appropriations. That's how they keep any war from being dragged out or implemented without their approval. So the president has the due right to defend this country and take those actions. But Congress already has a check and balances in there, and it's called, they control appropriations. They can pull the money back to make sure no long-standing combat operations happen. They didn't need this tonight. This was nothing but grandstanding and political posturing. Just like the impeachment, it's not going to go anywhere. It was just for someone to, give someone a chance to stand on that floor of the House and get their 10 minutes on MSNBC, and it makes for great headline fodder. Just like the president was impeached, it's the same thing. They've limited they passed the bill, but it's not going to do anything, right? And that's what the American people are so frustrated. We've talked about this show a number of times. That this is the swamp that every American hates. This is the beltway crap that everyone can't stand. They want them, if you're going to spend time and you're going to get together and vote, do it for something this country cares about that's meaningful, and quit just doing it just to get your 10 minutes in front of the cameras. All right, we ranted enough, I think. What do you think, Toby? You ready to wrap?
I agree. I know you got to get to practice.
Yeah.
I want to go eat dinner, so yeah, let's do it.
Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us on this Thursday night, January 9th. We are back next week on the 16th here on Stu and the Nunn. We have our next guest already lined up because Rob is the most awesome
we have
paid
to
producer
start
ever.
paying him.
That's right.
We have to start paying.
Yeah, we do. So, anyways, we're back next week, next Thursday, 8:00 here on Stu and the Nunn. We are also looking at possibly the week after that of having a little special show, maybe on a special night. We're talking about that. So stay tuned on that. We'll have more by next week. So the week after, the week of the 20th, we will probably have something a little special and unique that week. But until then, Thank you, everybody. Toby, thank you. And we want to wish everyone a great night. And stay safe out there. Hug the ones you love. And all that good stuff. And there we go. So have a good night. Thanks to Jeff Gonzales. And we'll see you all next week. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Stu and the Nunn Radio. We hope you enjoyed your time with us because we have enjoyed sharing our time with you. Be sure to check out stewandthenunn.com in addition to asking us questions and interacting with us on our Facebook page and Twitter. We look forward to seeing you next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern here on Spreaker and Facebook Live. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Warrior Media Solutions, BlueHammer.com, Veteran Outdoors, Graybeard Publishing, and Mighty Oaks Warrior Foundation. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. Thank you again, and have a good night.